Yeah, it looks like we'll have a good amount of people today. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat room. Also introduce yourselves. We definitely want to get to know everyone here today. We are doing these webinars month to month, and we're bringing different topics. We're bringing different guests and different strategies that can help not only our TrueDoor clients, but potential clients as well, right? We want to make sure that we set you up for success and that we share different strategies that are working in today's market. And one of them is ADUs. It's a great way for you to add, extra doors, add more cash flow, and we'll get into that. But again, thank you guys so much for being here today. So we'll just hang out maybe 2 more minutes, give or take, and then I'll make my introduction. I'll hand it off to Cameron, who's our special guest today. He's an ADU expert, also a co-owner of ADU West Coast, and he has a full presentation for us today, so he's going to share a lot. And Bryant Hull is one of the owners of the company. He has done a couple ADUs, or Cameron has built a couple ADUs for him on his properties. So we're excited to also see what his process looks like and what that kind of looked like for him as far as time frame, cost. We'll give you guys a good breakdown of everything. All right. Awesome. So just hang tight, guys. Give me 2 or 3 more minutes and we'll get started. I would say in the meantime, if you guys don't mind introducing yourselves in the chat room, I'd really appreciate it. And if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to throw those in the chat as the presentation comes along and as we continue the discussion. All right, so I think we have a good amount of people. Welcome. Let's see, we have Alicia, Richard, who work with us here at Property Management, TrueDoor Property Management. We have Trang, thank you so much for being here. We've got Richard, Annette, Megan, Brenda, Deanne. Thank you, Deanne, for being here. She's also part of our team. We've got Anson and Lewis, and I know I'm still waiting for my team as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, guys. This webinar is being recorded, so if you missed or maybe you walked in late, feel free to check out our YouTube channel. We're gonna upload the entire episode on YouTube once this is completed. So I'll go ahead and get started and introduce myself. My name's Stephanie Gutierrez. I'm the portfolio sales manager here at TrueDoor Property Management. We now have a TrueDoor Realty and Investments division. So what does that mean? That means we are here to help you with all of your real estate needs, as well as property management, right? That's our forte. That's what we're here to do. But we want to bring different topics of discussion for you guys and different strategies, different hacks every month, kind of sharing what's working in today's market as a landlord, as a TrueDoor client, or as a potential investor, like I mentioned earlier. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Cameron Meredith. He is the co-owner of ADU West Coast. Cameron and I do a lot of meetups together, ADU meetups. And, for those of you who don't know what an ADU is, we'll get into that and talk about the basics and help you understand what an ADU is and how that's going to help you leverage, right, your assets or your potential cash flow. So I'm going to hand it over to Cameron. But before I do, I just want to stress that with so many ADUs being built, you're going to want to know what the management side looks like, right? And so we're here to help facilitate that entire process for you guys and streamline it. Because again, that's what we do. We manage over 700 properties here in Orange County, and we have a pretty good system. We have a great team that helps you from A through Z. And the goal is to make it smooth for you. And as we say here at TrueDoor, it's making you more money with less drama. So I'm going to hand it over to Cameron. Again, thank you everyone for being here. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, thanks for having me as a guest speaker. And before I get started, can everyone see my screen right now? Okay, perfect. So yeah, before I tell us about what we're going to talk about today, I'm not here to sell you on our company. I made this PowerPoint presentation specifically for people that don't know a lot about ADUs or want to learn more about ADUs. And I pretty much cover a lot of topics that you might questions you guys might ask if you're building one or looking to build one. So if we can save questions for the end, we'll do a Q&A at the end. But again, I'll cover quite a few stuff. And let me minimize this so you guys can see that. So first off, this is the overview of what we're going to cover here. When you guys see these pictures throughout the slide, these are all ADUs we've done. So all the pictures that are in this PowerPoint is stuff that we've done in the past. So you'll see that as we go throughout. Number one is who is ADU West Coast. I'll explain who we are, kind of introduce you to our team. What is an ADU? I'll go through the exact specifics of that and what makes an ADU, what type of stuff you have to put in there in order to get permitted as an ADU. I'll show some pictures and videos of ADUs we've done. Some of the benefits of ADUs, some of the major 2020 law changes. That's when everything changed as far as the ADU landscape, which I'll cover. Average cost ADUs, what to look for, which will bring that up and down. This is always changing. I haven't seen it go down recently at all in the last few years. I just see this continuing to rise. So again, I'll talk about that. And then at the end, different financing programs that we see. And then, like I said, at the very end, we'll do a Q&A in case you guys have any questions. So first off, who is ADU West Coast? It's made of 4 main partners. We work with more people than that, but as far as the initial team who started the company, it's us 4. Chung Lam is a structural engineer and GC with 10 plus years of construction development experience. Ron Householder, he's been in mortgage and real estate for 20 plus years before getting into construction and development. I used to be in real estate about 6 years ago until I started shifting towards doing more development stuff. And then Chi is actually Chung's brother. He's a architectural designer with over 15 years of experience. Reason I put this in here, it's 2 custom homes that we built in downtown Huntington. We split this lot and built these custom homes. Again, the reason I'm showing you that is that was our background before getting into ADUs. So we were designing and building custom homes. We still might do like one a year or so, but again, all our focus right now is just doing ADUs. So what is an ADU? I'm sure a lot of you already know, but legally, in the eyes of the city, an ADU is a second or third house complete with independent living facilities, which includes a kitchen, a bathroom, etc., for 1 or more persons. So again, very important, it has to have a kitchen and it has to have a bathroom. Those are the 2 things that it needs in order to get permitting. Obviously, you need some more stuff than that, but they're not going to let you convert your garage into just a living space without a kitchen or without a bathroom. Down below here, ADUs stand for accessory dwelling unit. You've probably also heard names such as granny flat, grandpa flat, mother-in-law quarter, father-in-law quarters. There's a bunch of different names, but the actual legal name is an accessory dwelling unit. Now, this depiction over here to the left shows you the type of ADUs you can build. So we'll start with the top left. Over the garage is going to be really costly because we got to restructure that first floor. Obviously, if you don't have enough room in your backyard, or if you don't want to take away your garage space, you're able to do a unit above your garage if you'd like. To the right here is a garage conversion. So you can do an attached garage or a detached garage, it doesn't matter. That is going to be the most cost-effective ADU to build, and it's going to be the most common that we see. Down here is a standalone unit. So if you have enough room in your backyard, which is 4 feet setback from your side and rear lot line, and then anywhere from 6 to 10 feet from your existing structures, as long as you have a footprint within your backyard that you can build a freestanding unit, they're going to allow you to build a freestanding ADU. And then right here to the bottom right, basement or attic conversion. We don't have a lot of basements here like they do in the Midwest. We are, oddly enough, doing one in Highland Park, which is East LA, which is more of a tiered hillside home. So I'll share that, as we go along and finish construction. But that will be our first basement conversion that we're doing. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Everyone that lives here knows we're in a housing crisis. You can see how far behind we are compared to the population and what type of housing we need. And then you can really look at this graph and see the red is deep red where there's major cities. And again, the reason I'm showing you this is the reason why the 2020 laws were passed is to provide more housing throughout the state. So again, I don't want to cover this too much. We all know how much of a crisis we are in as far as inventory goes. Right here's a couple ADUs that we've done. So if we start to the top left, this was a 400 square foot ADU that we actually attached behind a detached garage. Fun fact, if you attach an ADU to an existing structure, you can avoid having to do solar panels, and you can avoid having to do a soils report. A soils report is going to be required for any freestanding structure in California. That goes for ADUs as well. You're looking at an extra 4,000 to 5,000 just for that soils report. And then again, depending on your ADU, the solar could cost upwards of $12,000. So obviously the client didn't want to pay for the extra cost. So in order to avoid that, we were able to attach this to the detached garage to avoid that. Right here to the right, this is a really nice ADU we did in Whittier. This one's about, I would say, pretty close to 1,000 square feet. The owner's mom is moving back into here, and you can see it's a little bit nicer than our standard garage conversion. And then down below here, this is an ADU we did in South LA. This was a 2-car garage before we converted it. So again, a couple different projects for you guys to look at. Funny enough, I would say about 80% of the ADUs we build on single family lots are for family members. So what else can ADUs be used for? Remember, it has to have a kitchen and it has to have a bathroom, but not to say we haven't seen some of the stuff mentioned here. Elderly care is huge. We see a lot of elders moving back into the unit. So if you see this one we did in Long Beach, this was a ground up ADU we built. Just fun fact, we have to match the stucco with the existing as well as the roof. So you can't build a modern ADU if your front house is a Craftsman and vice versa. But elderly care, this property specifically, we had a grandma move back into here. Music studio is big. Office space became really huge as far as COVID. People were kind of building more of a studio flex space and then renting that out, once they're done. Workout yoga studio, art space, guest house, entertainment area, and then income property. What are some of the benefits? So ADUs can provide a source of income for homeowners. I know a lot of you either own your own property or own rental property. What we're seeing for an average 400 square foot garage conversion is about 1,800 plus for the LAOC area. ADUs allow extended families to be near one another while maintaining privacy. So again, same here. If you look at the bottom right of this depiction, you can see that these are ADUs that are potentially, being built, and these are going to be totally separate structures. So if you wanted to put a wall here and separate this off, you can, even though it'll be the same parcel, it'll almost act as a separate, totally different area and yard space, which a lot of people do. ADUs allow a more affordable approach to senior living. I touched on that. ADUs give a homeowner an increase in property value. So this is a really important, it's not a set equation. So I can't tell you how much. What I can tell you, it is added square footage, it is an extra bathroom, and it is an extra bedroom. So depending on your area, it really depends on how many ADUs sold within your area, which is how much value they're going to give you. So very similar to a real estate comp when you sell a property. They're looking for any ADUs that have sold in the area as far as like a single family property with an ADU, and that will determine what your value is, okay? ADUs increase the housing supply, especially in urban areas. Again, this goes back to the affordable housing in the major cities where we need it. And then owners can now build 2 more units on a single family R1 zoned property. I'll show you an example of Bryant Slater. We did an ADU and we did a junior ADU within one parcel. So he has the same.
And I'll say, Cameron, that was like a big update in legislation, right? Where now you can build 2, because typically you'd be able to build 1 by default, just based on legislation. But now you essentially can turn your single family into a triplex, right? By adding 2 more doors, just like Bryant did, and Cameron did the project for that. So I'm excited for you guys to see what that looked like, timeframes and costs.
For sure, and I have a depiction as far as the floor plan of what it looks like from above, as well as a video, so you guys can see what that looks like, okay? And then it's going to help solve part of the housing crisis in California. I think we have too many people here either way, but it'll put a little dent in it. And again, that's the whole reason why they passed these laws. Now, what are some of the city benefits of ADUs? This is important. It counts towards their RHNA, which stands for Regional Housing Needs Assessment and Housing Element Needs. And it counts towards their affordable housing requirements. So these two things, every city throughout the state of California needs to hit a certain goal based upon their, population and whatnot. ADUs count towards both of these. So you might wonder why, number one, statewide, they have to follow state guidelines, but even once they leave it up to local jurisdictions to decide for themselves, I think we're still going to see a lot of ADUs being built because of this reason. The only way we can catch up with housing is by doing it on existing parcels. And again, that's why the whole reason why these laws were in place. Down here, conserve a variety of community needs. So the young, the elderly, and the workforce. One thing to touch on about workforce is California is the #1 state throughout the country as far as traveling nurses go. We have a huge demand for traveling nurses. So I have 2 clients. I know Stephanie knows someone that deals with that a lot, but I have 2 clients that are renting to traveling nurses, and for a standard 2-car garage, they're getting about $2,400 for a furnished unit. That's something that
And just to give them perspective, like what's the size of that, right? It's not
about
even that big.
anywhere from 360 square feet to 400 square feet. So just a simple
Mhm.
1-bedroom unit is yielding that much for a traveling nurse, which is crazy. And then it's going to increase your property taxes. So this is a question I get all the time. The way that it gets increased, it's called a blend assessment. So what happens is your existing tax basis for your home will stay the same as far as what you're taxed on, but there will be an addition. And the way they calculate that is, let's say the cost of construction for an even number is $100,000. That $100,000 will get taxed upon whatever your tax basis is, and that would get added on top. So it ends up being less than $100 a month if you're doing a standard garage conversion. I know that's kind of confusing. We can talk about that after if you have questions, but again, it's called a blend assessment, where it's the cost of construction gets added on to your tax bill, if that makes sense. Again, if you have questions later, we can touch on that. Some of the major 2020 state law changes: the owner no longer has to live on the property to rent it out. That was a big thing before 2020. HOAs must allow ADUs. I can't promise you if you're in an HOA that they're not going to try to fight you or, be difficult. We just completed one in Lake Forest. The HOA was fine. But statewide, it says that the HOAs must allow ADUs as long as it follows the CC&Rs of the community. No minimum lot size requirement. Before it was about 4,800, I believe. An ADU and a junior ADU can be built. So again, you can potentially have 3 total units on an R1 zoned property. There's some new multifamily ADU laws, which if some of you own multifamily buildings, there's a huge opportunity there, which I have an example, which I can show you later on. Limited parking requirements. So if you're within a half mile of a public transit, which a bus stop counts as a public transit, or if you're converting garage space, there is no parking requirement. So again, half a mile of public transit, or if you're converting existing garage space. Down here, cities can override major state law changes. That's huge. There's a guideline called the HCD ADU guideline book, and that's the guidelines that each city has to follow throughout the state. It's a government agency. Again, it's HCD ADU guidelines. I can put that in the chat once we're done.
Yeah, I can do that right now.
Yeah, perfect. And then in most cities, you can build up to 1,200 square feet. Some have tried to limit it to 1,000, like Long Beach on an R1, but most are going up to 1,200, just a heads up. So average cost of ADUs, it's always changing. Again, these are just averages. Okay, so if we're doing a simple garage conversion, which again is anywhere from 360 to 400 square feet, you're looking at about 125 to 150K. If we're doing that same structure from the ground up, let's say 400 to 600 square feet, you're looking at about 155 to 225 plus. And then if you're doing that above a garage, I mean, that's going to push pretty high. As I told you, we have to restructure the first floor to support that second story. You're looking at least 220 plus. Again, these are just kind of averages. So, I haven't seen your property. Once we go out, we can assess that and figure out what exactly it costs. But again, these are just some rough numbers for you guys to look at. And again, these are what you should expect to pay for a full scope of the work, design all the way through construction. So here's an inspection list that I do, some things to look at. So how far is the property wall? How close are we going to be building to the property line? Primary setback, how far are we to the primary dwelling unit? Driveway condition, and what type of material is that driveway? Is it all concrete? Is it pavers? Is there a grass area that we can trench down? That's very important. Oops, excuse me. Surrounding grounds. So this is really important as well. For example, we want to know if a garage is elevated down from the street. Reason why is just an example. Your sewer might not have adequate flow to go to the city sewer main. So, or the city lateral, your lateral within your property. So if it does not have proper sewer flow, you might need either a higher raised foundation, or it could require a sewer pump to pump the sewer all the way to the front. So really important to note any elevation changes, hillside, anything like that. If we're doing a garage, we want to know what type of condition the detached garage is in as far as the roof. Is there termite damage? Is it leaking? That's all important stuff. Inside structure of the garage, even though we, build it from the inside out, we want to see, what type of condition that's in. See the garage slab. There's always some hairline cracks, which is pretty normal. The dimensions of the garage or backyard. The sewer, again, we always connect to our sewer lateral, which is usually within the front of your property. And then electrical, where are we trenching for that electrical? And then your water and gas connection point. What to look for with costs, again, just to kind of reiterate, electrical, we're going to have to, either way, whether you get a separate meter or not, we're going to have to trench to the current electrical panel. Sewer, we're going to have to trench all the way to the sewer lateral, which again is usually in the front of your property. Raised foundation or slab, sometimes it could be a little bit easier if it's a raised foundation. Condition of the surrounding area, again, look for elevation changes, hillside, anything like that. Condition of the garage if we're doing a garage conversion. Here's some rental scenarios. So I know a lot of you, again, own property or own rentals. This is pretty much everything we've seen our clients do or plan on doing. So scenario one, live in the main house, which would be right here, and rent the ADU out for $1,800 plus. Again, that's for a standard 2-car garage. That's what we're seeing. Live in the ADU and rent the main single family. This is becoming a lot more popular. We see a lot of people that, let's say their kids moved off, or they want to kind of downsize. Well, they're keeping their property and they're customizing the ADU for themselves, and they're renting the front house out, which is, a 3 or 4 bedroom for, let's say, $3,200, $4,000 a month, whatever your area yields. These are just examples, but I would say this is becoming a lot more popular. Number 3 is you can rent both the ADU and the single family out, and go on vacation, go live somewhere else part of the year. But a lot of people are starting to do this as well. So here is a video of Bryant's actually, and it's just, I didn't get the junior ADU. I wasn't able to upload it in time because I'm still waiting on some pictures, but this will give you an example. This is a 450 square foot garage. And I put this music on because I heard me breathing, so that's why we got the music. But you can see the type of material we use, shaker cabinets, luxury vinyl plank. We always put a stackable washer and dryer in there. But again, this was an existing garage before, and we just used the existing garage space.
Yeah, I really like those bathrooms. Those bathrooms are very well done. Those were nice.
And so hopefully that gives you an idea. Again, that was about 450 square feet, and that was a 2-car garage before that we did. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what we can do. Again, you can kind of see here, that's where the junior ADU is. I do have a video, it's just not uploaded to YouTube yet. So if you guys want to follow later on, I'll upload that. That way you can see that. Sorry, let me go to the next one here. There we go. So this is an example of what we just walked through. So this is actually Brian's property. So if you look at this, I know it's kind of confusing sometimes looking at floor plans, but if you see this striped area, that's an existing single family property, okay? If you can see my mouse, it ended off right here. And what we did is we walled up this hallway door, and we utilized this bedroom as a part of the junior ADU. You can see it's where the bed goes and the table. And right here is your bathroom and your kitchen. So we did add 150 square feet right here to the bedroom in order to accommodate about 305 square feet. So again, we utilized one of the bedrooms within the single family house. We added 150 square feet, and now we have a studio here, okay? The front house was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath before, now, or excuse me, 2.5. And now it is a 3, 2.5. So you can kind of see the existing of what's there. Right here was the detached 400 square foot garage, which we built the 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit, which again, that's the one that we just walked through. Here's a side depiction. You can see kind of more of the elevation shot of that. This would be this area over here that we're looking at. This is the junior ADU. And then again, that's the garage that we converted. So hopefully this floor plan makes a bit sense to you guys. But again, if you have questions, we can talk about that later. Some multifamily examples. Again, I know a lot of you might not want to know about multifamily, or you just want to know about single family, but I think multifamily has a huge opportunity here for ADUs. The rule is not to get into too much detail, but there's 2 ways you can build ADUs with multifamily. The first way is they'll allow you to build 2 freestanding ADUs up to 800 square feet out of existing space. So if your multifamily lot had enough open space to build those ADUs, they're going to let you build that. The second way you can build ADUs out of multifamily is they're going to allow you 25% of the existing unit count. So pretty much what you can do is, let's say like this unit right here, right? This was a total of 16 units before. You can see that this is kind of the plot map that shows there's units up here, and then there's 4 units in back. Well, what we did here is we converted 3 garage spaces into 2 ADUs. So you can see these are 2 studios. And technically, the owner could have done more than that, but he didn't want to disrupt all the parking. So he did keep some of the garages in the back. These were more used as a storage space anyways, so it's kind of dead space. But again, we utilized 3 garages into 2 studios. And again, just to reiterate the 25% rule, let's say you had 4 ADUs, they're going to let you do 1 ADU, since that's 25% out of non-livable space. Non-livable space is a garage, it's a storage room, it's a space where nobody lives in. Okay, so again, if you had 4, it's 1, if you had 8, it's 2 ADUs, and so on. So essentially, if you had a 100-unit building and you had enough garages to convert, they would let you technically do 25 ADUs. So again, you can kind of see how big of an opportunity that is if you do any multifamily. Here's the example that I just showed you. So to the left here was the 3 garages that's what it looked like before. There's units up top, and then up top here, you can see that's the finished ADUs that we did. You can see the 2 doors, and then this is the interior. So these are 2 studios. They're about 300 square feet each, which we were kind of limited on space, but again, it shows you what we can do with that space. So steps with building an ADU. So first we hop on the phone. I'll pull up your property on the Google Maps. We'll go over any details. From that point, if you want me to come out to the property, I do a site inspection, which includes a proposal. I include a ADU inspection report, and then I also include a plot map with one of our designs that shows exactly how far we're trenching for your utilities. That way you can kind of visualize where that ADU is going to go and where we're going to trench. I do charge an inspection fee for that. Personally, I charge a $350 inspection fee to go out. That goes towards your build if you guys decide to move forward. So kind of like a plumber, you have a service call, pay for that. And then once you guys decide to move forward, again, that will get credited back. Site inspection. So once we do the site inspection, again, excuse me. That's when I take all the notes, pictures, and measurements to figure out, the feasibility of building the ADU. Right here, I start the construction, or excuse me, start pre-construction phase, which is everything you need to do as far as pulling your permit. So your architecture, your engineering, your Title 24. Once we're done with that and we get full approval, we're ready to start construction. And then once we start construction, you're ready to either rent your unit out or you're ready to move a family member back. So average timeline, this is always changing. It depends on your job and it really depends on your jurisdiction. There's some cities that are more favorable than others. For example, I'll never do a job in Compton ever again. The way that city operates and just how awful the process has been. We've been doing construction on a job there for, going on a year when it should only take about, 7 months or so. So there's certain cities that are better than others. With that being said, in all, you're looking at about 12 to 15 months total for design build. Your pre-construction could be anywhere from 5 to 7 months. Your construction could be anywhere from 5 to 8. Again, we've done some in 4. We've also done some in, pushing on a year if you're in Compton. It just really depends, but these are average timelines. Heads up, separate meters. If you guys are doing separate, let's say electrical meters, that could add another month or so, just depending on how busy Edison is. We cannot pass final inspection until we get those meters installed. So just a heads up, if you do plan on getting separate meters, it adds another month or so to your project. Here's some basic floor plans. So again, this kind of shows you what we can do with space. I'm updating our website here in the next few weeks with some more floor plans that we've done. That way you guys can get inspiration or just check it out. Here's another ADU garage conversion we did. And it's that same song because I don't want to hear myself breathing. And so, but this was a 360 square foot garage. They're not renting this out. They're moving their mom back. But again, this is in Lakewood and you can see it's a pretty nice, as far as layout wise, I really like this design. But it gives you kind of a feel for what it looks like. And it's hard to imagine sometimes what the space looks like because you can't walk in your garage and really imagine this. But, once it's completed, it's pretty surprising. And again, we always put a stackable washer and dryer, or we recommend putting a stackable washer and dryer within the units. So there's that. And then financing options. So obviously the rates are pretty high right now, as a lot of you know. We've seen a lot of cash out refinances. We've seen HELOCs. We've also seen home renovation loans. Now, any of these are, a lot of these are going to have their advantages and disadvantages. I'm not a lender, so I can't really discuss that. What I will say is that no matter what, any of these financing options is going to tap into some sort of equity. So whether that's your, home that you live in or another property you own, they're going to use your property as collateral. Okay, so you're going to need some equity in order to finance these projects. Again, talk to a lender about, I do have recommendations. I'm sure Stephanie does as well, but talk to a lender specifically about your situation to figure out what works best.
Yeah, we do have preferred lenders that we work with. I'll say this morning I did a podcast with a self-directed IRA specialist. And what she mentioned that I thought was pretty creative was if any of you have a self-directed IRA and you have funds in that account, you can also use that to fund your project or fund someone else's project and essentially become the bank, right, to fund that. That's just another creative way because as Cameron mentioned, I think the biggest hurdle right now is how do we fund these types of projects, right? And so if you don't have enough equity, HELOC's not going to be an option. And if you do a renovation loan, the rates are just extremely high, right? So how do we find a creative way to sort of fund the projects? And that's one of them. That just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, great point. And then, so that's pretty much it. Again, I wanted to keep it kind of limited. I mean, there's a lot more to know about this, but in case you have questions or want to follow us, here's my information to the left. So you can save my number in your phone as the ADU guy. And then to the right, Instagram, just at ADU West Coast. That's the best way to follow our work, see what we've done, see what we're currently doing. I pretty much post there every day. And then Facebook, website, and our YouTube is just all ADU West Coast. I also put a lot of YouTube videos out that are pretty informative, so feel free to check that out. But with that, I'll leave it open to some chat or some questions, excuse me.
Thanks,
Um,
Cameron.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think I had some questions, but you answered them too. Well, a lot of them was like financing and time frame or cost, right? A lot of people want to know what the cost is, what is the time frame, what are some exit strategies? So before we go on to the questions, guys, feel free to chat, type any questions in the chat. I want to hand it over to Bryant because now that Cameron did an awesome job with the presentation and gave us clarity on what the estimated cost is, what's the time frame, what are people utilizing it for, it'd be nice to hear what Brian, who's one of the owners of the company here at TrueDoor, what is he going to do with these 2 ADUs that he built, right? What is that? What is the plan? What does that look like? And maybe that'll give you, as Cameron said, some inspiration so that you can think outside the box and think like, okay, what would my exit strategy be if I'm looking to implement this strategy on my current assets or future assets, right? If you're having the intention of buying, whether it's a single family home or you're having intention of buying a duplex, like what should I really look into when building the ADU, right? Because that's step one, building it. But then like you should have an exit strategy first and then sort of reverse engineer that and set up a game plan. And we're here to help. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Bryant and he'll talk to us about what he's going to do with these 2 ADUs that he has now.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think that when I went into this, the big concern that I had was how do I still invest in Southern California and make it cash flow? So there's looking at buying additional units or looking at buying additional rental properties, it was hard to make those cash flow. But if you have an existing rental property anywhere in Southern California, and you already own the land, you own the real estate, by putting an ADU is one of the few things that actually made financial sense for me. And so I looked at my rental property in Long Beach and I decided, hey, this could work. I wasn't quite sure what it looked like, how much it cost, but I talked with Cameron. I talked with a couple other companies, had them kind of consult me, let me know what I could do with my property. And because I'm in the rental world, I kind of just ran the numbers myself. But looking at the 2 properties, most likely the studio that you saw in the pictures, I'll probably run that for as a midterm rental. And that will be for like traveling nurses, maybe people being displaced by insurance or by displaced like on an insurance claim. And that one should yield anywhere from 25 to 3,000 just on a monthly basis. And that'll be a furnished unit. So at least for what I put in so far, it looks like I'll spend about an additional 5,000 to 7,000 to do the furnishings, putting in the bed, like all the pots and pans, linens, all the furniture, couch, TV, those types of things. The other unit, because the midterm rental is kind of an experiment for me because I've never done it before. The other unit is just going to be traditional, the 1 bedroom. We're going to rent it out. Most likely that will rent between 2,000 and 2,200 because of the location. So that one's about to hit the market probably next week, as long as I can get a trailer out of the way. So, but yeah, we've taken the pictures. It's all ready to go. We just need to start the marketing. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions about that specific, happy to answer.
Thanks, Bryant. And just to kind of break it down for you guys, if he's collecting or potentially being able to collect 2,500, we said for the smaller unit, guys, that's the one that he's spending about 5,000 to 7,000 to furnish and cater to travel nurses, corporate stays or insurance. These are all different avatars, right? And we're just kind of throwing out different ideas of people that you can cater to depending on your market. And midterm rental is sort of like that sweet spot between long-term rental and short-term rental, because with short-term rental, it gets a little bit, weird with ADU legislation. Technically, you're not supposed to STR or short-term rental your unit, or depending on your local municipality. I know Long Beach, for example, it has to be a minimum of 30-day stay. So you sort of avoid having to deal with any ordinance changes, and you can 2 to 3x your long-term rental amount. So if he can collect 2,500 for the smaller unit, which is the junior ADU, and he said roughly about 2,200 for the other unit, the second unit, that's a substantial amount compared to what he was getting just off of one home, right? Just off the front home. Now he has 2 potential rents. He's collecting the appreciation because now the property goes up in value. We still don't know how much in value. I had an appraiser take a look at his property, and he kind of gave us a good understanding of what the potential evaluation would be, or value of the home. I would say conservatively, it's like 25% of whatever the average price per square foot is selling for in the neighborhood, but that's being very conservative, right?
Now, let me just jump in on that. So like if you're looking at a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex, very rarely are you going to see anything trade for less than 300 a unit. Yeah, a lot of times in Orange County, it's even pushed up to 400 to 500 a unit.
Right.
500,000. So I would say you're probably fine in that, estimating about 250 to 300 plus per unit.
Per
And
unit.
so if you're spending around 150,000 and that unit is worth anywhere from 250 to 350, that's a pretty good return. And then not to mention the cash flow, because you're not paying for any of the land. If I can buy units for 100 to 200,000, and then rent them out for 2,000 to 2,500, I'd do that all day long. That's a decent
Exactly.
start.
I agree. Yeah, and not only are you gaining on the appreciation, right, from building more units, also the benefits of the cash flow play, but then the depreciation too. Brian, did you want to touch on that for those who don't understand, or maybe our current clients, right? Like what are some of the benefits of the depreciation factor?
Yeah, I guess if you have a fairly high income, depreciate, or even if you don't, every one of us typically are paying some amount of taxes. And so you'll be able to depreciate the asset. And looking at least this is what I plan on doing, those 2 additional units that I'm adding, I'll most likely do an accelerated depreciation, which will help me take that depreciation sooner,
Right.
in a bigger way. So that should offset some of the income that I bring in.
Exactly. Yeah, no, these are all great hacks, and I'm glad we got to hear Brian's perspective on what he's gonna do with these ADUs, right? And I'm sure that you have to put a lot of thought into that before you build them. Financing is also a big issue, and we talked about that, but we have a team. And so here at TrueDoor, the goal is that now with me as a portfolio sales manager, we offer the acquisition services, right? So we would help you analyze a potential property, whether it's a single family home or a duplex. We will look at it from an ADU lens with the help of Cameron. So we help you buy more assets. We will help you analyze the asset and see how we can maximize the space. And then we help you manage it, which I think just it's a full A through Z service. And hopefully it's not going over your guys' head, but this is what a lot of people are doing here in California, because we just have to live denser, and due to affordability and just the housing, issue that we have. We're behind, I forgot the number, but I think we're behind, like, what is it, Cameron, like 4 million homes that we're behind on build, right? So people need more housing. There's different reasons why you can build an ADU, and the first step is to get educated. So that was sort of the purpose of today's webinar. And now we'll go into a Q&A. I know we have a few questions in the chat. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I have a few questions myself that I'll throw in, but let's start off with the first one. So Annette, thank you for asking a question. Her question is, hi, I'm Annette. I'm a self-managing landlord in Bakersfield. So her question is, what was her question? Could the ADU connect via courtyard and have it qualify as not necessary to the soils report and solar? You responded, Cameron, but do you want to just touch a little bit on that?
So I'll elaborate on that. We just actually went through this in Fountain Valley, and we tried to get away with doing a breezeway as counting that as an attachment, quote unquote. But it didn't fly with the city. And what they told us, and what I think every other city is going to follow something pretty similar, but Fountain Valley told us we need at least a 5 feet wall connection point to the single family. So what we're going to do is, well, what the client's going to do is we're going to build a wall, and then later on they're going to come and just basically take that out and make it a breezeway after we pass final inspection. They're going to do that on their own. But to answer your question, you're going to have to at least need about a 5 feet wall connecting the two, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you want to reach out to Cameron, he's very easy to get a hold of, if you ever need more guidance or help or explanation. But thank you for that question. The next question came from Dora. Dora, thanks for joining us today. And her question is, what's a HELOC? A HELOC, and Richard responded, so thank you, Richard. A HELOC is a home equity line of credit. So what that basically is a credit line based on the equity that you have on your property. And a lot of people are using this strategy because the rates that the banks offer are much more attractive than what traditional financing looks like. And your payment is a little bit lower. So I know we had a client, Cameron, I can't remember, I think it was Jesse, the MTR expert, who had a client, he got about $150,000 HELOC, home equity line of credit, right? So if you have $300,000 in equity, you can probably get about $100,000 to $150,000 of that, borrow against your property's equity. And his payment for $150,000 was about $600, and he was going to rent the ADU for $2,500. So it still allows you to cash flow, right? If you go with the HELOC option, and that's why a lot of people are opting for home equity line of credits versus, your construction loan or, a traditional type of a second loan. And that's what people are using right now. The problem is, if you're like a first-time buyer or a first-time investor and you just bought your property and you want to build an ADU, you may not have enough equity, right? You need to have a certain amount of equity in order to utilize this type of loan. But it's a good option. So if you have equity and you need help with that, I can help you with that. But I would advise you to go to your local bank, see what they offer, what's the rate, what are the terms. They're usually like 10-year terms, 20-year terms. But you may be able to pay it off sooner, right? Especially if you're renting it out, that's the benefit to it. You may be able to pay it off sooner. We have another question from Lewis. Have you worked with Renify? Where they take the ARV with the added ADU instead of current equity, or do you have any other examples of great strategies clients have used for financing the project? Renify is good. I think their ARV, or what they let you borrow, is like pretty high. Do you know, Cameron? I think it's like 70%.
I don't recall, but yeah, we've to answer the question, we have worked with lenders that have similar programs. But yeah, I would say this, depending on your situation, what we're seeing a lot of right now is second mortgages. And
Right.
what that is, it's basically not touching. A lot of people right now are at a 3% or lower, right, on their house from that big refi boom we had. So people don't want to touch that. So what a lot of people are doing is whether it's a HELOC or some sort of renovation loan, it's just a second mortgage behind your first for the construction. So let's say it was 200K, you're just getting a loan for 200K that would be in second position of your first mortgage. But that's probably what I'd recommend if you can do that. But again, always talk to a couple different people and figure out, what works best for your situation. Because they're going to look at you and they're going to say, okay, cool, show me how much income you make, show me your credit, show me how much equity you have. And that equation is going to tell them and you what the best scenario is going to be for what you can do.
Yeah, what I tell my clients, it's like when you bought your first home, right? The first step is not to go out and look for the property or start shopping around. The first step is to get financing in place. And so the first step to buy your first investment is to get pre-approved, figure out how you're going to finance that property or that asset. Same thing with ADUs. The first step is, can you build it? More often than not in California, yes, you can build it, but how are you going to finance it? So you first want to talk to a lender, whether it's your local bank, Renify. Cameron has a lender that's part of our team as well, that can do the second loans that he was talking about. And, just exploring the different financing options is step one. Once you know how much you can finance, now you reverse engineer that. Let's say you're able to finance 150,000. Okay, well, what can we build with 150,000? Based on Cameron's presentation, that's about a 400 square foot garage, right? And so how much can you rent it out for, and how much is your payment going to be on that 150,000? And that's sort of like, the workflow of how you want to analyze or underwrite the scenario. But again, it may sound like a lot of moving parts, which they are, but we're here to help you throughout that process. So cool. Let me see. Do cities have, okay, this one's from Nan. Do cities have any say in rental costs to meet affordable housing goals? I mean, I guess like if you use the affordable housing rule of thumb, right? I don't know that they would have an actual say. Do you know, Cameron?
I've never seen it,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure. I don't believe so. But always double check with your local jurisdiction to find out if there's anything. But me personally, I've never seen that.
Yeah. If anything, I know like in multifamily, they will incentivize for you to build more units if a portion of it, like let's say you're building a 13 unit complex and 25% of it is going to be affordable housing, they'll allow you to build 17 versus 13 because a percentage of those units are going to be towards affordable housing. So they do incentivize it, but I don't think they have any say as far as like what the rental cost would be. But that's a great question. We'll have to verify. I know if you do, you know, Brian?
Well, one thing that people should just realize is that, let's say you have a house and it's a rental property, and then you build an ADU that's also going to be a rental property. As soon as that second unit is built, the first unit it's under statewide rent control at that point. And so it's looked at as a multi-unit, whereas it used to be just a house and it didn't fall under rent control. The new unit, because it's new, it's not under rent control because new units or new construction has a 15-year grace period. And so the rules won't apply, the rent control rules won't apply, at least for right now, until the 15 years are up. So that's just something to like be aware of, is that once you build it, that the original unit is at risk of being under rent control.
After 15 years though, right? That's a little.
No, so the original unit, because it's already built.
Oh, the original, but what about the ADU? You wouldn't have to worry about that.
The ADU would not be under rent control because of the grace period of 15 years.
Right. So you wouldn't have to worry about it for at least 15 years. That's another hack there, right? I didn't know that. So thanks, Brian. Okay, let's see here. So thank you, Nan, for your question. All right, so we've got Trang Tran. I have a property in Garden Grove. I built a 1,200 square foot detached ADU. Can I still do a junior ADU and convert my garage at the same time? I'm not sure if the rule still applies where I do a junior ADU, then max the size of an ADU to 800 square feet. So, Cameron.
Yeah, if I'm reading this correctly, you're fine with, you know, the detached ADU that you mentioned. You can do the junior ADU out of a garage as long as the garage is attached to the main house. If the garage is a detached accessory structure, that cannot be a junior ADU, because the rules with the junior ADU, remember now, it has to be built within livable square footage, which for some reason they count an attached garage as livable square footage, even though it's still a garage. So it'd have to be built either in that attached garage or a portion of your front house. And the total square footage of that, it has to be under 500 square feet, if that makes sense. So yes, you could build the 1,200 square feet and you can do a junior ADU as long as it falls within the guidelines that I just explained.
If it's attached, but if not, then essentially he just wouldn't be able to convert the garage if it's detached.
I mean, technically you could do two ADUs. You know, there's cities that try to argue with you,
Right.
but if you follow the statewide legislation, the HCD guideline handbook, it says in there that you can do two ADUs, one out of the garage and then one freestanding. I can't promise you the city's not going to bark about it, but statewide it says you can.
Yeah, and I'll add the guide right now on the group chat so
Perfect.
that you get, so everybody can take a look at that.
And like quick tip and heads up, you know, we live in a time where, you know, we have these powerful AI tools that we can use.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you have a simple AI chatbot, like I put this PDF in a chatbot and I'll reply and argue and just kind of reason with cities based upon, you know, having the AI write that up for me. So you can easily do that as well, and just kind of skim through that HCD guidebook. And if a city's giving you issues, you can kind of use that as a tool to help you out, you know, argue with them.
Exactly. And it may take a lot of that because some cities aren't fully aware of what the ADU legislation and regulations look like. That's why it's important that you work with somebody that is doing this day in, day out, or is just familiar, or you become familiar with like what the Garden Grove ordinance looks like, right?
Mhm.
And what's allowed. But that's a good question. Maybe you want to set up a call with Cameron and see how we can help you with this. We have another good question from Annette. So her question, I think this one's for Bryant. What's the benefit of accelerating the depreciation? Don't you have to pay back the depreciation credits when you sell? I know you responded.
So
Bryant.
it's kind of a technical question. Yeah, it affects your basis, your tax basis, as you depreciate the asset. So when you do go to sell, it can definitely affect, you know, what you're going to be taxed on at the sale of the property.
Right.
But I told her in the chat, I'm not an expert. I gave everyone a contact, Nathalie Hernandez. She's an expert on this. She can help you. They have pretty decent pricing when it comes to creating or setting up the mechanism to do this. But it's essentially the reason why people do it is to offset income now. And so if it makes sense to offset your income now, as opposed to maybe when you go to sell the property, maybe there's a benefit, but maybe there's not. So you know, talking with an expert would definitely definitely help.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a benefit if you're not thinking of ever selling it or maybe doing a 1031 exchange in the future. But yeah, that's a good point, Bryant. So thank you for that. All right, let's go through a couple more questions. I know we had a hard stop at 2, but that's okay. Sounds like everybody's digging this topic and it's one that I'm a huge fan of. So we'll keep it going. I've got a few more questions from Luis Ramos. He says, and this is a good one, and this is kind of why ADU started to begin with, right? And the question is, have you dealt with making non-conforming units? Is this process difficult to make, units legal? And I think when legislation passed in 2017, it sort of happened because there were so many garage conversions that were converted, but not up to code, right? A lot of them were done illegally or just not up to code at all. And so legislation or the state said, well, how can we make this more feasible for homeowners to start doing it the right way? The difficult part that I've seen, and I want Cameron will kind of share because he's managing a lot of these projects and going through the process himself. But I'll say that it has been difficult to convert some of them. I talk to clients all the time who want to convert, who want to do it the right way. It's already converted, but more often than not, it's not up to code technically, right? There's some units that are even very well done, but they're not up to code. And you still have to go through the series of inspections that Cameron mentioned. And that's the difficult part, right? Like, how do we find a happy medium between making some of these illegal units into legal units if they're built the right way? But Cameron, do you want to kind of touch more on
Yeah,
that?
it's a great question. And really it depends. It depends on a couple things. It depends on how well built that illegal structure is. And it really depends on the inspector and the city. Because what happens essentially is, let's say me personally, let's say I had a illegal conversion out of a garage. Well, the proper steps to get that permitted and legal would be go to the city, notify them about the unit. They're going to have an inspector go out to your property, probably rip out some drywall. They're going to need to look at the insulation, the electrical, the plumbing. So again, that's why it's important to determine how well built that structure is, because what a lot of people don't realize is we have a state guideline of what's called Title 24, which is material and energy efficiency. And, for example, your insulation, your windows, all these things have to follow Title 24, where even if you built something 10 years ago and it was built, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, whatever, and it was built okay, well,
Right.
that might not suffice for Title 24. So a lot of these people will say, hey, look, I already have plumbing, I already have lights, everything's good to go. All I need to do is get this permitted. When in reality, it's no, that's not the case in most situations that I see. And the reason why is the insulation, the plumbing, the electrical, all that stuff needs to be inspected. And in most cases, it's not up to current Title 24. So what I will tell you is, again, depending on how well it's built, but in a lot of cases, when we see illegal structures, it ends up almost costing more to rip everything out than to just, start from a scratch vacant garage. I've seen this come in multiple times where we have to, do more work than what's needed just to mediate that illegal space, if that makes sense. Now, on the flip side, let's say that your unit is built pretty well built. Well, hey, the inspector could come out, rip some drywall out, check your insulation, check your plumbing, and he could say, hey, this looks good. I need you to draw up a plan and submit to the city, and you'll need to hire an architect and engineer to submit to the city, and then they could approve based upon what they found there. But in most cases, like I said, I've seen it where we have to rip pretty much everything out.
Exactly. Yeah, so more often than not, it's costing you even more money. So in that case, I mean, unless the city's like called you out on it, you may want to just consider that before going to the city, because you're sort of opening up a can of worms there, right? So just know that you'll have to, if you open that up with the city, now it's open for discussion, right? And you may have to tear that down and build it again. And that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario is, it's built up to code, you've done a decent job. And as Cameron said, the inspector just has to check behind the drywall and verify that everything was done the right way. And hopefully, you get it approved. But more often than not, we just see a lot of pushback with that. And I think the biggest reason why is because they're just not built correctly or up to code. And so we're here to make it done the right way, and also make sure that it benefits you, right? If you do it the right way, you're again benefiting the value add, the appreciation and the depreciation, and that's it. So I really want to thank Cameron. That was a really dope presentation. And like I said, Cameron and I do a lot of meetups. If you go to adumeetups.com, we've shared a lot of different topics of discussion, both in residential and multifamily. And now we're really wanting to help you guys manage these ADUs once you've built them. And we're here to help you from start to finish. So if you guys want to schedule a call with myself, Bryant, Cameron, we're here to share knowledge and give you like a 20-minute consultation where we can sort of strategize and see how we can help you. And that's it. You guys have any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was fun. And we'll be here again next month, guys. So every month we're just gonna bring on a different guest, bring on different strategies that we think you guys should take a look at, take it into consideration, because California is what it is, and we just have to pivot. We have to get creative with different strategies. And we're here as a resource, and we can't wait for you guys to hear the next one. I may have an IRA specialist. I think that may be a good topic. One more question from Brenda. Do you charge for a consultation? No, not at all. So you guys more than welcome to reach out to me. My email is stephanie@truedoorpm.com. Cameron also put his information in the chat, and we'll go ahead and email everybody after today's webinar so that you guys can connect with us, and we'll take it from there. Thank you guys again. This was awesome. Thanks, guys.
You guys, bye.
Bye.